I remember the exact moment my world tilted on its quiet axis. It was a Tuesday morning in early April, the kind of spring day where the rain falls soft and steady, not angry, just persistent, like it has all the time in the world. I was 38 years old, sitting alone on the worn gray couch in my fourth-floor apartment in the city. The building was old, brick walls that kept the cold in winter and the heat in summer, windows that rattled when trucks passed below on the street. Rain tapped against the glass in a slow, even rhythm. I had just poured hot water over a chamomile tea bag when my laptop made its small chime. 10:47 a.m. An email notification. The subject line read, Pulitzer Prize announcement, official notification. I set the mug down without drinking. My hands felt suddenly cold. I clicked once. The message opened. The first sentence thanked me for my contributions to journalism. The second sentence listed the category, investigative reporting. The third sentence carried my name, Sarah Ellis, in bold. It described the 5-part series I had written over 18 months, how a chemical manufacturing plant upstream had been quietly discharging toxins into the river that ran through my home county for more than 2 decades. Children born with persistent rashes and open sores that no cream could heal. Women who miscarried without warning month after month. Families forced to buy bottled water on wages that barely covered rent and groceries. I had sat in their trailers, on their porches, at their kitchen tables. I had listened while they cried, while they whispered, while they showed me medical bills and photographs of their children's arms covered in red welts. I had written every word they gave me, carefully, truthfully. And now this. A committee of strangers had decided those words mattered enough to name them among the best of the year. I stared at the screen until the letters blurred into gray shapes. My chest felt full, not with pure joy, but with something heavier. Relief mixed with disbelief, mixed with the old familiar ache that had lived inside me since childhood. I reached for my phone without hesitation. I always called home first, no matter how many times the calls left me feeling smaller, no matter how many times I told myself I should wait until the feeling passed. The line rang 4 times. My mother answered on the 5th ring. Her voice was thin, still carrying the morning quiet. Hello, Mama, it's Sarah. I swallowed hard, tried to keep my tone even, but my throat tightened anyway. Something happened today. Something really big. A pause. I heard the faint scrape of a chair in the background. Then my father's voice, closer now. Who's calling? It's Sarah, she told him. I pictured him walking from the living room recliner to the wall phone in the kitchen. The same phone they'd had since I was 10, cord tangled from years of use, receiver heavy in his hand. I drew the deepest breath I could manage. I won the Pulitzer Prize, Mama, for the River series. They announced it this morning. The silence that followed felt thick and endless. I could hear the kitchen clock ticking in the background, the old wall clock with the black hands, and the second hand that clicked too loudly. It had ticked through every family meal, every Christmas Eve, every quiet Sunday afternoon when no one knew what to say. My father spoke first, his voice low, roughened by decades of mill dust, and the cigarettes he quit cold turkey when I was 12. Well, that's something, Sarah. That's real something. He paused again. I waited, hoping for warmth to follow. A small laugh, a question about how it felt, anything that would bridge the miles between us. My mother came back on the line. Her words careful, measured. We're proud of you, honey. We truly are. Another pause. But you know how your daddy and I feel about all this attention, all the spotlight stuff. I leaned my head back against the couch cushion, closed my eyes. It's not about attention, Mama. It's not about me. It's about the people I wrote for, the mothers who trusted me enough to tell me their stories, the children who are safer now, because someone finally listened. My father's voice returned, firmer this time, not shouting, just the tone he used when he thought something was getting out of hand. You always liked being noticed, didn't you? Even when you were little, running around with those crayon drawings, wanting us to stop what we were doing and clap for you. Always showing off. Stop begging for attention. Girl, we raised you better than that. We don't need fancy certificates or newspaper headlines to know who you are. You're our daughter. That's enough. The words didn't strike like a blow. They settled slowly, like cold water, soaking through layers of clothing on a winter morning. Heavy, quiet. I felt them lodge somewhere deep in my ribs. I didn't argue. I didn't cry into the phone. I simply said, okay. Then, softer, I love you both, and pressed the red button to end the call. I sat there in the half-light of my apartment, rain still falling outside, tea forgotten on the coffee table, steam long gone, the email still open on the laptop screen, my name in official black type. It should have felt like the top of a long climb. Instead, it felt like standing at the bottom of a deep well, looking up at a tiny circle of gray sky so far away. Let me take you back, way back, to the beginning. Milford was never meant to be a destination. It was the kind of town people drove through on their way somewhere else. One main street lined with a hardware store that smelled of sawdust and metal, a pharmacy with a flickering red and blue neon sign, Betty's Diner where the coffee was always strong and the daily special was almost always meatloaf or chicken fried steak. The paper mill stood at the north edge of town like a giant iron beast, pipes twisting into the sky, smokestacks breathing white plumes day and night, the low, constant hum that became part of the air you breathed. Our house was the last one on Maple Street before the asphalt turned to gravel and then to dirt. White clabbered siding that had gone gray at the corners from years of rain and neglect. A narrow front porch with 2 rocking chairs my father built from scrap lumber he brought home from the mill. They creaked in perfect time when a breeze came up. A small backyard that ended at a chain-link fence. 1 maple tree in the side yard. The only thing of real beauty we never had to plant or tend. Every October it turned gold and crimson, leaves falling in slow spirals like quiet fire. My father, Harold, worked the graveyard shift at the mill for 37 years. He left the house at 10 o'clock at night, thermos in hand, lunch pail under his arm. Came home at 7 in the morning smelling of pine resin, machine oil, and the faint metallic tang of exhaustion. He didn't complain about the job. He simply did it. On his days off, he fixed things, the dripping faucet in the kitchen sink, the loose board on the back steps, the old Ford pickup that coughed and hesitated in cold weather. His hands were broad, rough, always carrying a faint stain no soap could fully remove. His words were short, practical. Don't leave lights burning in empty rooms. Close the refrigerator door quick. Finish what's on your plate. There are kids who don't have enough. My mother, Evelyn, stayed home. She rose at 5:30 even on mornings when she didn't need to, swept the linoleum floors twice a day, dusted the shelves lined with ceramic figurines she collected over the years, small angels, porcelain cats, a shepherd boy with a chipped crook. She ironed my father's work shirts until the creases were sharp enough to cut paper. While she worked, she hummed old hymns in a voice so soft it barely carried across the room. Amazing grace, leaning on the everlasting arms, it is well with my soul. She never raised her voice, never needed to. One long look from her brown eyes could make you feel small, exposed. When you'd stepped outside the lines, she quietly drew. I arrived late, a surprise after 10 years of marriage and quiet disappointment. Doctors had told them it probably wouldn't happen. They named me Sarah because my mother said the name felt gentle, like a whisper. For the first few months, they called me their miracle. Then it became Sarah, or Honey, or simply girl when my father was tired after a long shift. Love in our house was shown through actions, not declarations. A plate filled before anyone else sat down. Clean socks folded and placed on the dresser. A cool cloth on your forehead when fever came. Dreams were handled with caution, like glass ornaments that could shatter if you gripped them too hard or spoke of them too often. My father would say, "The world doesn't care about your feelings. Keep your head down. Do your work. Stay out of trouble." My mother would add, softer, "We just want you safe, Sarah, safe and close to home." But safe and close never quite fit me. From the time I could grip a crayon, I loved making marks on paper. Stories about birds that carried secret messages. Pictures of houses with doors that led to other worlds. Lists of questions I was afraid to ask out loud. Why does the river smell sharp after heavy rain? Why do some fathers come home angry? Why do some children get new clothes every season while others wear the same coat 3 winters in a row? Teachers noticed. They gave me extra notebooks when they saw how quickly I filled them. I kept those notebooks hidden under my mattress, afraid my father would find them and call them foolish, afraid my mother would smile that polite, distant smile and tuck them away in a drawer where they would be forgotten. In 4th grade, Mrs. Harlan chose one of my stories to read aloud to the class. The Moon Tree. A lonely girl plants a single seed in her backyard. Overnight it grows into a tree, so tall its highest branches brush the moon. She climbs it, meets the old man who lives there, asks him why people feel sad sometimes. He tells her sadness is only the shadow love makes when the light is very bright. The classroom went perfectly still while she read. When she finished, the other children clapped. Real claps, not polite ones. I felt warmth bloom across my face and chest. Not embarrassment. Joy. Pure, bright joy. I carried the graded paper home carefully, like it was made of glass. A large red A+ circled twice at the top. My mother looked at it when I handed it to her, smiled. "That's very nice, Sarah. You write real pretty." My father glanced over from his recliner, newspaper open across his lap. Nodded once. "Nice story, but stories don't buy groceries or keep the roof over our heads." He turned the page. I folded the paper into quarters, slipped it into the shoebox, under my bed with the others. I never stopped writing. At night, I crawled under the blanket with a small flashlight my uncle had given me for Christmas. The beam trembled as my hand moved across the page. I wrote about the meal workers I saw walking over the dawn, shoulders rounded, lunch pails swinging slowly, faces gray in the early light, about the stray gray cat that slept under our porch in winter, curled tight against the cold, about my parents, honest things, not cruel ones. How my father sometimes sat on the back steps after a shift, staring at the dark yard without moving. How my mother sometimes hummed louder when she was anxious, the notes rising and falling like a worried heartbeat. Writing felt like the only way I could breathe, all the way down to the bottom of my lungs. High school arrived. I joined the school newspaper. Mr. Ellis, the advisor, became the first adult who looked at my work and saw something more than a child's hobby. He read my pieces, marked them with pencil notes in the margins. Dig deeper here. Ask what they're afraid to say. This sentence carries weight. Keep it clean. My first real byline was small, a story about the new stop sign being installed at the dangerous corner near the elementary school after a 2nd grader was nearly hit by a delivery truck. I cut the article out with my mother's good sewing scissors, taped it inside my closet door where no one else would see it. My parents never asked about the school paper. When report cards arrived, they checked the grades. A's in English, B's and 1C in math. Good job, my father said. That was all. College dreams began quietly, then grew louder inside me. I filled out applications in secret at the public library after school, using the slow computers in the back corner. When the thick acceptance envelope arrived from the state university, I opened it alone in a bathroom stall at school. Tears came. Happy ones, scared ones, grateful ones. I wiped my face with toilet paper, went home and told them that night at supper. My father read the letter slowly, turning each page as if checking for hidden costs. For years away. Loans. Rent in the city. You sure about this? My mother reached across the table and touched my wrist lightly. It's so far, honey. You'll be all by yourself out there. I nodded. I'm sure. They didn't forbid it. They didn't celebrate either. The morning I left, they drove me to the Greyhound station 20 miles away. My father lifted my suitcase from the trunk and set it on the curb without a word. My mother handed me a brown paper lunch bag, 2 peanut butter sandwiches on white bread, 1 red delicious apple, a small thermos of weak coffee, a folded note inside. Be careful. Call when you get there. Love, Mama. I hugged them both longer than usual. My father patted my back twice, quick, awkward. My mother held on a second more, her cheek against my hair. The bus doors hissed open. I climbed the steps, found a window seat near the back, watched them stand there on the cracked pavement until the bus turned the corner. They grew smaller and smaller, then gone. College was hard work and wonder braided together. Classes that demanded more thinking than I'd ever done. 2 part-time jobs, waitressing at a 24-hour diner near campus, shelving books in the library on weekends, late nights typing papers on a second-hand laptop that overheated if I ran it too long, early mornings brewing coffee for tips that barely covered bus fare. I learned how to interview people, how to ask without pushing, how to sit in silence when silence was what they needed, how to write sentences that carried truth without extra decoration. My advisor pulled me aside one afternoon after class. You have a real voice, Sarah. Heart. Don't let anyone quiet it. I carried those words like small stones in my pocket. Smooth, solid, something to hold on to. I graduated in 4 years, cum laude. My parents didn't come to the ceremony. The drive was too long, gas too expensive, my father's bad knee acting up. I told myself I understood, told myself it didn't matter. Then I moved straight to the city, a 1-room apartment above a laundromat. Every shirt I owned carried the faint smell of detergent and fabric softener. My first job was at the regional daily newspaper, covering school board meetings that ran past midnight, house fires that left families standing on the sidewalk in pajamas, ribbon cuttings at new grocery stores. I wrote each story as if someone's life depended on getting it right, because sometimes it did. Later came the deeper assignments, a 3-part series on women living in domestic violence shelters, how they rebuilt from nothing, another on veterans sleeping in doorways and under bridges, carrying medals no one could see. I began to notice patterns everywhere. Quiet suffering that went unspoken, invisible wounds carried behind polite smiles. I wrote about it all. Sometimes I mailed copies of the clippings home in plain envelopes. My mother would call a week later. Your aunt clipped your article and sent it. We saw your name in print. My father never mentioned the stories. Not once. I met Daniel during those years, a staff photographer at the paper, tall with quiet eyes and a laugh that came low and easy. He carried 2 cameras everywhere, one for color, one for black and white. He said my stories made the pictures feel less lonely. We fell in love slowly, coffee after late shifts, walks along the riverfront when the city was quiet, shared silences that didn't need filling. We married in a small courthouse room, just us and 2 friends as witnesses. My parents drove up for the day. My father shook Daniel's hand once, firm and brief. My mother hugged me, and whispered against my ear, "He seems steady." Steady, the word they always valued most. But steady no longer fit the shape of my life. The stories kept calling, louder, more insistent. Late nights at the newsroom, weekends away chasing leads. Daniel wanted a house someday, a yard with grass, children, perhaps. I wanted those things too, in theory. But the work pulled harder, like a current I couldn't swim against. We tried to meet in the middle. We couldn't. The divorce papers were signed quietly. No courtroom drama, no raised voices. Just a long hug goodbye in the hallway outside the lawyer's office. Then silence. After that, I poured everything into the reporting. That's when Maria called. She was 32, raising 2 boys alone in a single-wide trailer near the river bend. Her youngest, 5 years old, had open sores on his arms and legs that wept clear fluid. The pediatrician called it severe eczema, but 3 other children in the same trailer park had the same sores. All lived within a half-mile of where the chemical plant's outflow pipe met the river. I drove out the following Saturday, sat on her sagging porch steps, listened while she spoke in a low voice so the boys wouldn't hear. She cried twice, once when she showed me the photograph of her son's back covered in red patches, once when she said she couldn't afford the cream the doctor prescribed anymore. I took notes gently. No rush, no pressure. I kept going back. Every weekend at first, then twice a week. Knocked on every door along that stretch of River Road. Met grandmothers raising grandchildren because the parents were too sick to work. Fathers whose hands shook too much to hold steady jobs. Mothers who boiled every drop of tap water on the stove before letting their children drink it. I read thousands of pages of public records. Old permits, inspection reports, internal company memos leaked by a retired engineer who couldn't sleep anymore. I found emails, violation notices quietly settled with small fines. The plant had known for years. They kept running anyway. 14 months passed like that. Hundreds of miles on the same 2-lane highway. Gas station clerks started calling me by name. Knew I took my coffee black, no sugar. I sat in small kitchens that smelled of bleach and worry and boiled cabbage. Ate soup from chipped bowls when it was offered with trembling hands. Some nights I pulled off the road on the way home and cried in my car, silent tears that left my cheeks cold and tight. Then I wiped my face with the sleeve of my coat, started the engine, and kept going. The series published in 3 Sunday editions. Front page each time. Big headlines. Then the wire services picked it up. National papers reprinted sections. Television stations sent crews. Readers wrote letters to the editor. Hundreds of them called their state representatives. The governor ordered independent water tests. The plant was forced to halt operations. Cleanup crews arrived with heavy equipment. Medical assistance funds were established. Home water filtration systems installed door to door. Small changes, real ones. Lives eased, even if only a little.